Welcome to the Wellness in a Chaotic World podcast. I'm your host, Cheryl Davis. Before we dive in, I wanted to note that as a health and wellness coach, I can support you in making sustainable lifestyle changes, tuning into your own wisdom, and building habits that align with your values and vision for your well being. I don't prescribe or treat health conditions, as I'm not a doctor or a mental health professional. Instead, I can walk alongside you as you create a healthier life on your terms. From time to time, I share conversations with guests. The views and opinions expressed by those guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect my views or those of anyone associated with wellness in a chaotic world. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and isn't a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always talk to your doctor or qualified mental health provider about any physical or mental health concerns. This is the Wellness in a Chaotic World podcast, a place where we're having conversations about what it really takes to live well in our unhealthy, chaotic world. I'm your host, Cheryl Davis. If you're beating yourself up over a bag of chips you ate in a stressed out frenzy, or you can't figure out how anyone manages to find the time to even think about wellness, you're in the right place. We talk about all of these things and more because, frankly, we don't talk to each other enough about what we're really up against every day. Let's change that right now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wellness in a Chaotic World. I'm your host, Cheryl Davis. Today, my guest is Rebecca Rankin. Rebecca is a women's holistic hormone health coach specializing in cyclical living. As the founder of Women's Moon Wisdom, she is dedicated to helping women live in alignment with their natural cycles. With her unique blend of expertise of nearly 20 years in yoga and mindfulness, energy healing, and holistic hormone wellness, Rebecca offers women the tools and guidance to feel whole, confident in their skin, and live with greater intention. Through her app, coaching, and retreats, she empowers women to reconnect with their bodies, reclaim their well being, and live more vibrant, purposeful lives. Welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Thanks so much, Cheryl. It's great to be here.
So, to start off our conversation, I was hoping you would tell us a little bit about your own wellness journey, why you became a yoga teacher, and ultimately why you now focus on cyclical living.
Yeah. Um, hmm, where to begin? Um, it's been a journey. I think of us who are in the healing space, we all have, our origin story as to why we're passionate about what we do. And for me, I became a yoga teacher nearly 20 years ago, and I've been teaching full time since 2006. And really it started just with like having this deep intuitive call to ditch my day job as an architect and to really do something that felt in alignment with me, with myself. I think I bought into the idea that a lot of us buy into, right out of college, is that you have to have a career and work a 9 to 5 job, and you have to work hard and earn, good living. And I was so stressed. I was put myself under a lot of pressure. And I remember, working, I got a job out in San Francisco and I was working for a firm out there. And I remember looking around to my colleagues and thinking, I don't want this for me. Like looking around and seeing my fellow colleagues, one who had just had a baby and was already back in the practice and pulling late nights and working on the weekends. And I just couldn't envision myself maintaining that lifestyle and being happy. And at the same time, I was dabbling. I had friends who suggested to deal with my stress to seek yoga. And while I was a little bit, I don't know, I didn't necessarily wasn't eager to start it, and I was a little bit apprehensive, but ultimately I fell in love with it, and it was really just this feeling of coming back home to myself, and even just this feeling of connecting with myself in a way that I never had. I think a lot of us feel that feeling of, can we live our lives from our neck up, and from our neck down, we're completely disconnected. And yoga was like this first taste into feeling fully embodied in my body. And from there, it's had been just this spiritual journey of uncovering my own wellness journey. And part of that, led me to cyclical living was I, reached a point in my life where I was having kids and I have two little ones. And I realized how disconnected even further I was from my cycle, like from my innate feminine strength within myself. And I started to realize that as much as I was connecting with myself and, living a more, I'd say, holistic spiritual life, every month when my period came around, I felt this big disconnect of like, oh, dread and shame and like, oh, like discomfort. And I remember it's probably like 8 years ago, I had this realization of like, okay, that's not normal, right? Like feeling like having cramps and like bloating and having all these symptoms. I was like, all right, this is clearly not how our bodies were designed. We're not designed to have pain during our period, but yet it's normalized. And also like the feeling of dread, of inconvenience. I was like, okay, this needs like that was a big red flag of like this needs to shift. And so that began my journey of like looking deeper into ways that holistically like I live my life to have less painful periods and have less discomfort in my body and also just get comfortable with the part of me that is cyclical. And so that led me down the rabbit hole of learning more about women's health and about holistic women's health, and ultimately to cyclical living. And cyclical living is, for the listeners who are wondering what that even means, it's a lifestyle approach that emphasizes aligning to natural cycles in your environment as well as within your body. So aligning your daily activities, your like work, what you eat, your exercise, how you exercise, the mindset, social engagements with natural cycles. And this can be anything from aligning to the seasons, to the lunar cycle, or in this scenario with your menstrual cycle. And doing all that so you can just improve your own mental and physical health, have more energy, more contentment, and productivity, and but also promote your own spiritual growth.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Like, this definitely seems like something that people may have not heard of, or maybe they've heard of it, but they don't truly understand it.
Yeah.
And you make a really good point about how normalized it is for people with periods to like just accept this idea that we're going to be cranky or in pain, and
Yes.
it really isn't meant to be that way, is it?
Yeah. I mean, I think we live so much in our heads that we kind of write off the feelings that we have, the symptoms that we have as just like, oh, this is common or this is normal. Like pain, periods mean pain. I mean, I even remember growing up and when you first got my period was like, well, the narrative was, well, it's gonna kind of suck, and here's some Midol that you can take when you have cramps. Like this is to be expected. When you feel bloated, this is what you do. Versus the narrative shifting the narrative of being like, okay, if you have cramps, maybe this means that there's some sort of dysregulation that's happening in the body. You know, being cranky and everything is perhaps an invitation to look at what in your life needs you need to give a little bit more space to yourself so you have room to like buffer the stress that's in your life. And that's just something that we're not taught, right? We're just taught to
Mhm.
accept these pains, and this is, I mean, even the language around it, like, oh, it's the curse, right? It's the, you know all that language is really does not help the cause, right? We just buy into it and we're like, okay, well, this is part of being a woman. This is part of having a period. This is part of being a person who has a cycle. And the more that we can just recognize our body's symptoms, like all those things, as just like red flags, like calling out to us to be like, okay, that change needs to happen. Something needs to shift in our life. Um, and really it starts within because we know that collectively, if we each work on ourselves, then collectively it's going to help. But trying to, fix the whole system is a little bit challenging.
Right, right. So I really like the way that you look at this too. It's not necessarily just about people who have periods. This is something that could apply to anyone if they want to be living in alignment with like natural processes.
Yes. Yes. And I think it's something that's beautiful to look at is that we are nature. Like, and when we feel disconnected from nature, we feel disconnected with ourselves. And the natural world all around us, if we pay attention enough, is constantly giving us cues to choose a more mindful approach to live. Like, think of it this way, is if we every day watch the sunrise and the sunset, if we like made it just a point to like live in that that like one little shift and you're like, I'm just gonna like make it a priority to watch the sunrise or watch the sunset. That alone helps our circadian rhythm. So that's like our inner solar rhythm. So that will help your hormones. That helps your sleep-wake cycle. That helps your digestion. That alone, just seeing daylight in your eyes first thing in the morning can help set your circadian rhythm. It helps promote the cortisol release that we want first thing in the morning to get us up and going. And then when we watch the sunset and we live life like that, where we start to dim the lights in the evening and tell ourselves that produces melatonin, which tells us it's time to go to bed. So these simple cues that we can take to be in awe of nature really is just like this coming back home to ourselves. So if we can constantly look around and be like, okay, well, where I live, it's fall, right? And we very, fall-like weather. So now it's like this time to like kind of turn inward. It's time to get a little bit cozy, maybe set some boundaries as to like for our own space. Because if you think about the energy of summer, it's like go with the flow, do all the things. Schedules are just thrown to the wind. Like, and now it's time to like button things up a little bit and just start to like, all right, let's rein it back in. Let's get a little bit more on a schedule. If we lean into that, it can just give us these opportunities to just make more mindful choices. And so regardless of if you have a cycle or not, anyone can really follow these patterns as just a way to be these reminders of like, how can I just be more mindful and more present?
100%. I love it. So, one of the big things, hormones, we all have them. So, how do hormones influence our lives?
Oh, wow. I mean, they influence everything. And yet, like to kind of obviously I'm not going to go into like super detail of all the ways, but if we look at I always like to bring it back to nature because I think like we can really take cues from this. We kind of have these, if let's say if you're someone who is cycling, we have these two inner clocks, right? We have kind of the solar rhythm and this lunar rhythm. So we have our circadian rhythm, which is like our solar rhythm. So we have hormones that reset every 24 hours. For those with male biochemistry, like that's your main kind of rhythm is like even your sex hormones reset every 24 hours. And women are those who have cycles, our sex hormones regulate or reset every 28 days. So we can kind of feel into that. And our hormones affect everything from like mood, energy levels. So like, you may even notice like one part of the month, maybe you feel like you have more energy, others times you don't. They affect your focus, your creativity. They affect sleep patterns, how well you sleep. They affect the type of food that you crave, the types of food you need, exercise preferences. They even affect like your pain tolerance, endurance. They affect your like what you're attracted to, and specifically like our menstrual cycle, our infradian rhythm, our kind of that lunar rhythm affects the brain, metabolism, the immune system, the gut microbiome, stress response system, the reproductive system. So it kind of, like I said, affects everything, and yet no one's really taught much about it.
No, it's almost like it's completely ignored.
Yes, and I mean we could go into the very interesting science of how those with cycles, women and female biochemistry, have been left out of medical studies until like a decade, like 2000s, like very recent. And you're like, wait, what? Because we're seeing it as too complicated. There's too many hormones at play. And there's a term that I always like to think of in the biking. In the bicycle industry, it was called pink it and shrink it. So just make it a men's bike and you put pink on it and you shrink it. And in a way, it's like that's kind of this approach of like, oh, if it's good for the male body, it's fine for the female body. But knowing how our hormones, yes, we have the same hormones circulating in the body, but at different amounts and different time lengths, it's important to be in consideration of all that in the westernized world. So
Yeah. Um, so I have a question. So this being a new, let's say somebody's new to the cyclical living,
yeah.
what would be the best way to start getting into this and practicing it?
Yeah. So let's say I'm going to go through the lens of if you have a cycle first. Um, if you have a cycle, I think the first step is just to track it. Like track, but not like doesn't have to be like fancy. I think people can get like caught up on the technology. I mean, you can surely take like your body temperature and do like cervical mucus. You can track that. I'm talking more about the nuance of like notice, just track your energy levels, your mood throughout a month. Just track it and see like, and this is just so you can start to recognize your unique cyclical patterns. And when you start to recognize, oh yeah, during this, the week after my period, I do always feel like I have more energy or I feel more outgoing or I feel like I want to do things. And later on, like maybe you recognize that you don't have as much energy. So when you start to recognize those cyclical patterns, those are going to help you already give yourself a little bit more grace and like not beat yourself up. I think we can be our own, we can get caught in that negative inner critic that comes online and tells you, oh, you're being so lazy. But it's like if you recognize that you're in your late luteal phase, so like the week or so before your period, you're going to give yourself grace. You're like, oh, yeah, I don't feel like running that 5K. I feel like maybe just, hanging out and reading some books or whatever it may be for you and your unique experience. Um, Also, I think it's like, see yourself in the natural world. Like, can you pick up on cues around you? Like, so not only tracking your cycle, that can be like a great one, but let's say like even if you have a cycle or if you don't, like what can you learn about the seasons, right? Be like, okay, what's that a reminder for? Or I love to like work with like the moon phases. Like what can those be reminders for? So it's like, okay, think of the full moon, right? It's outside right now. It's a full moon. It's at night. It is so bright and it is like lighting up the world. And we can relate that to our own inner lunar cycle. That would be like ovulation. It's like, you're like being visible. Everything's like, you like want to see everything's. But it's also a time that like things are visible, like things are being drawn to the surface that you're like, I really need to look at that part of myself. Or this is a good pause point to check in with my desires, to check in with my needs. Um, how do I want to show up in life? How do I want to be more visible? And it's also a time to check in with like, like, where am I losing my sense of self? Where am I giving myself away so much that I need to rein it back in? And then you can look at, different phases of the moon. If you want to look at the new moon, it's like the darkness, right? How can I turn in? What intentions, what seeds do I want to plant now for this new cycle? So things like that to just reconnect to nature and realize that around us there are these cues to just live more mindfully.
Yeah, I'm glad you went that way because, as somebody, I've been on birth control, like the pill for
Hmm.
ages now. I can't even remember how long. And it works for me. But it's the one that it's like a 3 month cycle. So it's a little bit different for me. And I was curious as to how to you would apply this to that kind of a situation. So
Yeah.
thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because I think you can still lean into your cyclical nature. You can still lean into the cycle because there's so many things that play with us, right? Like, all these different ways to like kind of check in and see like, okay, when are you giving yourself time to rest? When are you giving yourself time to lean into creativity? When are you, leaning into setting boundaries for yourself? Like these are great opportunities. It's just like this giving yourself permission in a way to like check in with your body, check in with yourself.
So this is kind of when you talk about making shifts, that's kind of what we're leaning into, right? Is noticing, becoming aware. Are there other
Yeah.
shifts, like mental shifts, that you would think that people would have to make to live this way?
Yeah. So I think I think a lot of the work that I do is reminding people like this the power of the mindset shift because let me step back a bit. None of us are living in a vacuum. We all are juggling responsibilities. We're juggling, you know, families, friends, obligations, careers, all these things, and they all are pulling at us. And how we care for ourselves oftentimes is kind of the easiest entry point into cyclical living, into living in alignment, because we're called in so many different directions. So that being said, like how we care for ourselves, but even taking it a step deeper is the mindset shifts that need to happen in order to care for ourselves. So if we can let's look at the seasons. Gets a little bit more broad, and let's like generalize kind of each season. So we have spring. Spring is like awakening. Things are starting. It's like the new growth. It's like possibilities, right? Things are starting to bloom. It's like this feeling, that energy that's like what like what's gonna like what can I think big? Like what is like big dreams that I want to have? Then we have the energy of like summer. This is visibility. This is like the prime. This is like summer energy. If you think about it, like summer is just like, oh, you're gonna do all the things. You're gonna stay up late. It's like, and if we look at then fall as this time to like mindset shift of setting boundaries. It's about kind of bringing the energy back in. Cycles are meant to bring us into balance. So as much as we have outward helping others, being of service to others, we also need that much time for like service to ourselves, turning inward. So the mindset helps us to kind of gear into that. So if you cycle, then it's a nice way you can kind of work with that each week. It's kind of this different, you'll feel the energetic shifts, right? Each week is like a different opportunity to either feel like you can step into something and be more outward, or it's this feeling of turning inward and, being of service to yourself. And sometimes it's just that simple mindset shift that's going to give you, once again, like the grace to like be okay and not beat yourself up over how productive you are. If you look at nature, nature's not like perpetually productive. There's not always fruit on the trees. And yet we've bought into the idea that we can measure our self-worth by the number of things we've checked off on our to-do list. And that is just doesn't work because that leads to burnout, that leads to overwhelm. And so if we can give ourselves the grace to like know that we're not always supposed to be bearing fruit, we're not always supposed to be pumping things out. Like we also need time to rest. We need time to even just collect our thoughts.
Yeah, very well said. I love that. Um, so you have a number of offers and a lot of them are free. Tell me about some of those.
Yeah. So yeah, the kind of the free offers that I have. I also have many paid offers, but the free offers, we'll start with those. So I have a cyclical living journal, downloadable journal. You can either print it up or you can just fill it out as a PDF and editable PDF. But it helps you so it's journal prompts for either if you're working with your own inner cycle, would be kind of for each phase of your menstrual cycle, or if you're no longer cycling for whatever reason, you can align it to the moon, to the lunar cycle. And this kind of leans into what I kind of briefly went over as like kind of the mindset shifts. So it helps you kind of step into that. So it kind of prompts you with different journaling prompts to lean into it. Also within that free journal has a cycle tracker. So you can, for those who do have cycles, you can just, like I said earlier, tracking your cycle, like your energy, your mood, even like habit tracking, like when do you feel more active? When do you feel like you want to do a more challenging exercise regime versus, when do you feel like you need more rest? So it's just a nice way to see that, to once again kind of track over time the cyclical patterns within your own needs. Um, and then I'm trying to think what was the other free offer
Well,
that I
yeah, I noticed that you have an app.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Because the app, while it's paid, you can try it for free for the first 5 days. So the app is kind of where I take all of my yoga, meditation, breath work experience over, nearly 20 years. And I've curated it in a way to live in alignment, to use it in alignment with your cycle. And once again, you can really use it to whether you're cycling or with the lunar cycle. But it's different self-care practices to help you step into cyclical living. So there's every length of video from 5 minutes to hour-long sessions, and it's meditation practices. Some are great for, you know, if you're trying to get more restful sleep. Some are great for if you have like period discomfort to help you kind of move through that discomfort. Different yoga practices and movement practices, all of different varying lengths and intensities, as well as different breathwork practices that you can lean into. And that's just, once again, to help you use your self-care as the way that you step into like living in greater alignment with yourself. Because I think, once again, we have so many things that are calling at our attention. So how we care for ourselves is probably the easiest and most transformative way to step into aligning with your true cyclical nature.
Amazing. So where can someone find that?
Yeah. So if people head over to my website, so you can find me Women's Moon Wisdom on website, on Instagram. That's the name of my podcast as well. And you can find it all there.
Okay, I will definitely have that all in the show notes for everyone too. So
Great. Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you so much for being here. This was
Thank
awesome.
Thanks so much for having me, Cheryl. It's been great talking all things cyclical living.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. You can also find more about each episode on the website at wellnessinachaoticworld.com. Or you can find me on Instagram and Facebook, where we can chat more about living well in this stressed out, chaotic world. And as always, I hope you have a healthy, happy week. If today's episode resonated with you, our private Facebook group is a great place to dive deeper, ask questions, and share wins with people who understand. It's free, it's private, and you can join by clicking the link in the episode description. I hope to see you there.